Hi, and welcome back to Presenting for Engineers. If you haven't already seen the intro plus prelude video, which should be uploaded before this, please go take a look on that. It'll help you understand what this is all about. But in short, this was a workshop that I did for my university back in 2021. And I realized the best way to democratize the information is to encapsulate it within a reasonably short video and put it up online for everyone to use. So anyway, in this section, we'll be covering content proper, not the mindset, not the intro. So, you'll be missing out on that if you haven't watched the intro video already. I'll just assume that you have. And with that, we'll carry on. So welcome back. So, of course, you don't get to ask questions because this is not in person, but as always, feel free to contact me if you've got any questions about the content, any questions about mindset. All right, everyone ready? Let's go. Welcome to part 1, the stuff you say of Presenting for Engineers, a workshop by myself. Done in a one-take style, there might be mistakes, whatever, right? I'm recording this in a hotel room. I don't really have much options here. Anyway, let's go. So, one thing we're going to introduce is called the most important thing, or MIT. And in this section, the most important thing that I need you to remember is that a presentation is really just a conveyance of your idea to an audience, right? And what makes a good idea is that it convinces the audience to care. The audience doesn't have to be there, but they are there, right? They could be playing stuff on their phone, they could be staring off into blank space, they could be getting a coffee, could be getting a nap, but you need to convince them that your content is worth paying attention for. So a good idea is one that answers the question, why should I care? And this should be the heart of everything you do when you do your content for your presentations. You should always be able to convince the audience that it's worthwhile listening to you. Okay, the audience in this case is king. So if you have no audience, you have no presentation. They are indeed the most important. And the question, of course, that your king will ask is, what's in it for me? Why should I bother to listen to you? Is it because my idea is good? They wouldn't care unless it's related to them. If it's because I worked hard, well, the audience doesn't care that you worked hard unless, they love you or something, but very few people will care about that because I need the marks. Maybe your professors will care if you're a student, right? But if you don't answer, if you don't convince your audience, they're not going to pay attention to you. People will get interested in your idea because if it relates to themselves, right? Because people are in their own ways kind of egocentric. So give them a reason to be interested. There's nothing wrong with that, right? This is the heart of audience engagement. If you can convince the audience to be interested and it is targeted in a way that enthuses them, that answers a need that they have, a desire that they have, they will pay attention to you. The mental model that I used for this is the fishing mental model because it'll help. It's something I've come up with, but maybe someone else has already come up with it. Doesn't matter. Use it if it helps you, right? But what I do is that I think about let's do it in the form of an exercise. It's a lot easier that way, right? So our first exercise is called a master of baiting. So you are the fisherman in this presentation. You are the fisherman. Your audience is a fish, right? So you need to ask yourself, what is it do they want as a fish? That certain fish are only drawn to certain kinds of bait. And how can you deliver this bait in a way that lures them most effectively to you? Now, of course, if we were in person, if we were doing this class live, it'd be a lot easier to run through. But I'll just feel free to pause whenever and think about it for a bit before I deliver what some of the possible answers to this question. So let's think about the fishing mental model, right? Okay, if you're in a project presentation and you're the fisherman, what is your fish? Your fish can be fellow students. What is it that they'll want? They'll probably want entertainment or some form of stress relief because they are probably just as stressed as you are if they are, queued up after you, or they're probably bored and sleep deprived in their own ways. What can you deliver? How can you deliver this to them in a way that appeals to them? Well, you can be reasonably light-hearted, you can be sufficiently enthused, try to diffuse a little bit of positive energy towards them, or you can, not be painfully boring and monotonous in their presentation, because immediately then they'll just disengage and they'll go and do something else. Or, appeal to certain ideas that are rather universal amongst people, like give them a sense of identity, or these are a bit more abstract and a bit more strange. Don't have to do that. But generally, being humorous in your project presentation is a good way of catching the eyes of your classmates. But really, in a presentation, sometimes the most important person in the room is actually the professor who is grading you. So think about your professor as a fish. What would the professor want? Well, the professor has to grade you anyway, right? The professor is probably tired. He probably has things to do. She might have to deal with a lot of admin work, and all these things are weighing down on them. What would make a presentation pleasant for them? Well, if they could mark it really, really easily, that means they have like a set of rubrics in front of them. So cater to that, right? Your wiggle is going to be you design your project presentation in a way that is maybe it's humorous, it gives them a little bit of enjoyment and entertainment, but at the same time it helps them go through the rubric very easily, because all the points are there, and it's like they see, oh yeah, they immediately covered this, and the next section, oh yeah, it covers the next part of the rubric and all that. And all in all, this makes it easy for your prof to pay attention to your presentation, and it makes it go down a lot easier. Now, if we change our setting to that of a conference, if you think about people who go to conferences, what is it that they want to see if they are the fish? Well, probably they want to see new and novel ideas, but more interestingly are things that, like, for them to look at it and they think, actually, I can further that project, or actually, why didn't I think of that? That was very novel. This is something that I can continue feeding into. So that means you don't want to deliver your presentation as a very dull, monotonous, very straightforward, oh, we conclude this from this on this. Instead, you need to incite their interest by first starting off by saying, hey, this is generally true, but we notice this incongruence in the data, or something is just not quite adding up. And then you end off with like, hey, so this is all new and fresh, but we need new people coming on to further studies, to further study this field or further look into it, and you kind of like seed ideas into their head. So that is something that you can use in a conference. I admittedly don't have a lot of experience with this, so I'm drawing from ideas which can be found here, The Craft of Writing Effectively, from the U Chicago Leadership Lab. It's a video on YouTube. Go and search it up, and watch it. I think it was very, very worth the 1.5 hours that I spent on it. Anyway, and of course, if we're gonna be a little bit meta here, right? And think about this workshop itself, right? What is the fish? The fish is people like you, people who are interested in presenting, right? But you are engineers. You think in a certain way. You like practical advice. You probably think of things, of processes, right? Not so much about people. So how can I deliver this in a way that is more concrete and more abstract? Well, the stuff I do is that I will give you examples, I will give you exercises so that you can actually, see the idea in motion. You can look at it and feel it and experience it for yourself, rather than I just talk in abstracts and very fluffy and flowy ideas which may go over your heads. And I understand that, right? Some of us, we're just not built that way. We are built different. So that is the wiggle that I'm putting, so that it's attractive or it's worth your attention. So yeah. Now, remember that it's how the audience, right? The quality of your presentation is ultimately a function of what your audience views. So, sorry. So we're going to go into 2 tools that will help you try to deliver your content in a more effective way. Okay? And these 2 tools are, one, remember that your audience is late. Okay, let's go into some explanation first. Right, first is that your audience is they're going to be lazy. They're not going to want to think very hard. So the first tool you can use is you want to explain it like they're 5. And of course, it's kind of like that Reddit subreddit where people explain things simply, but that's actually a really good way of delivering ideas, because you want to explain it such that there is adequate
Entire team
adequate
is
content,
babies.
but none of the unnecessary jargon.
Entire team is babies.
So one thing you want to think about is that your audience is, you have to treat them like babies in that they are unfamiliar with your field, right? But at the same time, you have to be careful not to oversimplify. The point here is that you want to use cognitive ease to your advantage, which is this idea that you find that ideas that are easy to understand tend to stick better. So if you can digest your idea in advance for them and it's easy for your audience to understand, then they are going to pay more attention to you when you are presenting. Now, at the same time, of course, don't infantilize your audience, right? Because egos are fragile, especially the deeper you go, and the more accomplished your audience is. But at the same time, you don't want to bombard them with useless jargon and useless precision. You want to convey the idea, right? Whether they want to go deeper into it, that's on them, right? But if you make it too technical before that, you're going to lose them. Now, the second tool is to use a structure. Right, and the reference, the material, the video that inspired this section is Think Fast, Talk Smart by Matt Abrams. Worth taking a look. It's pretty short. I think it's a TED Talk, but I think it goes in much better detail, much greater depth than what I can afford to cover here. But essentially, is you want to use story structures, or you want to use structures in your presentation such that it offers a frame for your audience to understand your content, right? So the easiest one will be like a past, present, future kind of structure, right? Another popular one is problem, solution, benefit. I personally like sprinkling a little bit of benefit around the problem section so that you can kind of entice people to expect a reward afterwards. They can expect, like something good at the end. So that's one thing I like to do. But the most universal one I find is the what, so what, now what structure. For more details, go and watch that Matt Abrams video. Yeah. So the reason for this, why this is so powerful, is because stories carry meaning, and we are creatures that seem to constantly operate in the frame of a narrative. I've yet to read the book. I've watched his TED Talk, but essentially that's what I'm getting at, right? You want to exploit the fact that most of us have that storytelling tendency. The structure helps frame your content in that way. So this is the conclusion. This is the end of part 1, the stuff you say. The most important thing, the MIT, is that you need to convince your audience that the idea is worth listening to. The way you do that is you fish for attention using that mental model. And 2 other tools that you can use to further, enthrall and lock in your audience is first to explain it like there are 5, such that it's a simple and easy to understand thing. And then afterwards, you also apply a structure to your presentation so that you latch onto our storytelling, reading, absorbing tendencies, right? And lure them in and keep them in for the entire ride. With that, we've come to the end of part 1, the stuff you say. Right, we'll see you in the next video, part 2, the slides you show. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, but anyway, I hope it's been helpful. Let me know if you have any feedback. You can drop it down in the comments. You can message me, contact me in whatever way that you have, if you have any questions. And most importantly, I hope this section has been useful for you.